Take 15. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Jasmine Thomas. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Welcome to Take 15 of One Take, the podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Thomas, and I am extremely happy that you're here with me today. I have a very special story to share with you guys today, and this is a story that's going to teach all of us a lesson because I think we can all relate to this situation. You're having a hard day or things are busy and you're thinking you have it really hard and your life is hard and it's terrible until you put it into perspective. And what am I talking about? Usually somebody else has it worse than us. My guest today is a single mom. She's a businesswoman. She is a cancer and war survivor. She's also a published author. Her name is Maimah Karmo. Maimah has an amazing story and a very admirable way at looking at things. She is extremely positive. She finds ways to see the light into every situation, doesn't matter how difficult it is. Her attitude is extremely positive. I love her story. I believe that she has a great lesson to teach us, and why wait any longer? This is my conversation with Maimah Karmo. Okay, guys, it's time to jump into my conversation with Maimah Karmo. Maimah, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be on this morning.
I am so excited too. Your story is so inspiring. Why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself? How did you get to where you are?
So I was born in West Africa, in Liberia. My parents were amazing. My mother was a nurse and my dad was a commodities trader. And between his, travel, his business acumen, I learned to hustle and be a business person. And my mother taught me a lot about compassion and giving back to others. And that's kind of how my life started. In Liberia, there were unfortunately several coups d'etats, wars, and I had to escape, for my life 3 times as a child, and so that taught me resilience and always looking for, the best, most positive attitude out of any kind of challenge. So between my parents, their careers and what they did and who they were, and having to get through the wars, it really taught me the importance of, hard work, the importance of giving back and philanthropy, and the importance of looking for the silver lining in any kind of situation.
And when you were growing up, how did you become aware of the political situation? Did your parents tell you about it? Were you old enough to observe and understand what was going on? How was that process for you as a child?
Well, it was unescapable because, very early on, after the first war, there were soldiers walking around with guns and in military fatigues. And there were soldiers that would have these Jeeps with them in the back, of soldiers sitting in the back of the Jeep, driving around. And they have, these big, not tanks, but these big sort of pickups with men with, armed. I remember walking with my mom, going to the grocery store, and alongside us walking were soldiers again with different kinds of guns. And there was a sense of, but the thing was, that's how life was. It wasn't like they were going to attack us. It just, you learned to walk and pick up, go buy candy. And 6 feet away is a man with a gun who you're pretty sure has killed somebody in his life, and there was it wasn't even a democracy of sorts. It was, like military law, and you didn't know when things would change, but that's how I grew up. And some might think that's unfortunate, and it was, but it just taught me, I don't know, for some reason it gave me a high tolerance in terms of, a sense of vigilance for my surroundings. And it lets me really appreciate my life now. I live in the U.S. and, it's relatively safe here. And that's something that most people in many countries don't have, that safety and knowing that they're okay and protected.
And how did you guys find your way to end up being in the United States?
Well, so the first two wars, my parents, we got on a plane and they brought my brothers and I over here to the States, and which was wonderful. The last war, however, was a very different situation. My mother was here already with family, and when the war began, it was my father and brothers and I back in Liberia, and he literally just picked me up from school one day. We had to graduate the next day from school, and the next day he put me on a plane alone. And looking back, whenever I tell the story, I'm always just astounded because my daughter is now 14, and I cannot imagine her, being ripped from her entire life and just put on a plane and told, I'll see you soon. Because I didn't know if my father or my brothers were coming. I didn't know if they were going to escape at some, with their lives. And so when I got here, my mother was in a different state to where I went to, and I was alone. I found my uncles and cousins, soon, but my immediate family was not with me for many months, and it was very frightening to be alone. They came eventually to the States and we got a small apartment, and there were probably about 9 or 10 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment that was very tiny. And that's how my life here in the States began.
How do you guys assimilate into the American culture, into, finding jobs, going to school?
Well, we were very fortunate in the sense that Liberia, the country was founded by freed African American slaves. So a lot of the aspects of the culture we understood. But the thing was, visiting a culture is different from staying someplace. When you visit, you come and you enjoy it and you leave and you go back to your home. But now we were realizing that my parents, we would ask my parents, when are we going to go back home? When are we going to go back home? Because after a while, the vacation wasn't fun anymore. We missed home. And once we realized we weren't going back home, a bit of a depression set in. We were just shocked because, we left with all of our belongings in one suitcase each. So, we were thankful for our lives, but just still kind of in shock with the fact that we weren't going home and there was no home to go to. And honestly, my parents got involved with the church, and they were so good to us. People would bring us food. We were volunteering. My parents were very into volunteering and giving back. So even though we had nothing, they had us volunteering in the church, volunteering with different charities. And so we just kind of assimilated. We didn't have a choice. And it was difficult at some times because, although we had similar cultures, people where we grew up in Liberia were just people were more friendly, more open. And it was just different to get used to the pace of life here and how fast it was. And people sometimes, pretended to be certain ways. Everyone, when you say, how are you doing? Everyone say, I'm fine, I'm great. And that's not how things are in different countries. I'm sure you know this because everybody's not great. And so we would be like, what's great about it? Like, you weren't smiling 2 minutes ago or 2 seconds ago. So you had to learn to put on this front in a way. And it was just kind of weird and different. And, and then with even the shopping, my parents in Liberia, when you went shopping, you would say, hey, I want to buy something. And then you say they would say the price is, let's say $10. And you say, okay, well, I have 7 or 8. And that's, you bargained. So imagine me going to the mall, going to like a Saks Fifth Avenue or Neiman Marcus. It didn't occur to me that we had no money. I just was like, well, people know us. People are going to figure out. It's like my parents know people because they did back home. And so I go to the mall and go to the most expensive store. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I like these jeans. And the guy says, oh, they're 100 and, whatever dollars. And I say, oh, but I have, 20, 30. And he's like, yes, but here's the price tag. So things like that were interesting, it was different. It's funny now. And, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change any of it.
Now, excuse my ignorance, but the language in Liberia, do you guys speak English?
Yes, English is our primary language. And I'm glad you brought that up because in Liberia, people speak the Queen's language. I mean, they speak other dialects, but the general language is the Queen's English, proper English. And so the way people spoke here, to me, we didn't understand what they were saying because they spoke differently. People tend to slur their words, or they put words together. For example, this might sound silly, but when we say how are you back home, we say how are you, and people here say how are you, like how are you, and so I constantly was saying what, or they would say how's it going, and I would be like what, and so it was like being in a different world, having to understand a language that you thought, okay, well, they speak English here, but people didn't speak the same kind of English. So it was just very, very interesting and funny, and learning the system, and things like we had phones back home, but the phones, you could pay your bills sometimes and the phone still wouldn't work because the phone company wouldn't they would turn the phones off because there was no, service. They wouldn't, you know what I mean? Or you
Yeah.
pay your light bill and they would just turn the lights off because they had a problem. But here there's always light and water, and things were so green and big and ripe, and bananas look like plantains, like everything was just big and colorful, and there were so many TV stations, and so it was just, some things were great and exciting. But I really, really miss the culture in terms of the connection and the closeness.
Yeah.
And people were just so warm, and that's something that I missed it so much, and my heart always ached for that. And so one thing I've worked to build through my work is a sense of love and connection, and in culture, and inclusivity with people, because this country is so big and things move so fast. People live far from their families and they're disconnected, and it's lonely. And so that's one thing I've always retained as part of my being, is telling people I love them, or I care, or giving hugs. And people would always tell me when we first came here, they would always ask me, why are you so friendly? And I was like, I don't know how else to be, but I never changed that way of being, because I realized that's something that I could always take with me as part of my culture.
Awesome. Now, let's fill in the gap from when you got here to where you're at now, because you are a busy mom, you are a businesswoman, you run your own nonprofit. Tell me what took you there.
So the nonprofit was pretty much, it was it was an accident, but it was God's design. I'll put it that way. So I always wanted to serve God in some way. I'd always wanted to, to help people. And I love, my heart is so filled with love for people, for others in the world. And I didn't know when I was younger what I could do that would be able to allow me to serve people and serve God and love people rather, for a living. And I knew that I had something to do, but didn't know what it was. And so I ended up, we came here as refugees, and you got whatever work you could get. So I ended up working in communications and marketing for a while, then going into government contracting. And I just always felt an ache and a void for this thing that I knew that I wanted to express, but not knowing what that thing would be. And so just so happened one day, I was taking a shower and found a lump in my breast. And it turned out the lump was, my doctor told me at first, the surgeon told me it was nothing. The mammogram came back clean, but I pushed for a biopsy and learned months later that it was stage 2B aggressive triple negative breast cancer. And so after getting diagnosed with breast cancer, my whole life turned upside down. And I realized that I had been living my life accumulating things, accumulating ways to feel safe. I wanted to feel safe again in the world. And I wanted to me, having material things, having houses or money in my account, those things made me feel safe and successful. And it wasn't wrong, but it wasn't right either, in the sense that I wasn't giving of my heart and soul back to God and the world. And so I went through a depression. I was afraid because, imagine finding out you have cancer at a young age. My daughter was just 3 years old then, and I had to make decisions about my life that would impact my entire life. I had to decide, about treatments, and, when and where and how many, and surgeries and doctors, and I had to understand things I had no understanding of. And so going through the process of, first of all, finding the lump, going to a doctor, getting misdiagnosed, having to wait, having to push for more diagnostics, then getting the, aggressive diagnosis, and making all these decisions, and how I felt, it seemed out of this world. Like it wasn't happening to me. And there was also, when I was going through treatment, there was nobody that I could find that was my age that I could connect with. And so I found that there was a void within the healthcare system for healthcare, health oncology. And then even further, that I found that there were people didn't talk about God or love or soul within that space. So I began to pray to God and just ask Him, God, if I don't know why this is happening to me, but if there's a purpose for this, please show it to me, and I'll give my life to serving you through this work, whatever it might be. And so I prayed that one night, that prayer, and the next morning I woke up and I was a different person. And God had given me the vision for my organization, Tiger Lily Foundation, which is here was set up to educate, advocate for, empower, and support young women before, during, and after breast cancer. And so it began as a blog, sharing my story. And then very soon I realized it was bigger than just me. There were others whose stories needed to be heard. And there were others who needed to, to feel not alone. And, once you stand up about something and you believe in something, people tend to come to you and they think that you're an expert. And I was like, wait a minute, I have no idea what I don't understand breast cancer. I don't understand oncology. I don't understand any of this work. But, God is so powerful and amazing because, I was an expert because I had gone through something that other people hadn't gone through. I had gone through something people hadn't gone through at a younger age. I'm West African, but I'm also American. I was a younger woman then with a child. And so the perspectives I had to offer were very unique. And then also what I found is that I began to change. I began to change from somebody who was, afraid and timid to having the strength to speak up and serve and share my ideas. And then it began to grow from there. People would call and say, can you come on television and discuss your experiences, or can you come to my church or this health fair? And pretty soon my reputation began to grow within the health and breast cancer space. People were coming to me left and right. Then I had to begin a nonprofit to be able to raise money. I had to build a board to run the nonprofit. I had to have events you know what I mean? So it kind of just snowballed. And before I knew it, I thought, what the heck have I done? What the heck? And then I left my job. But before I left my job, something magical happened because I thought, I'm just a girl who got breast cancer and who's helping other people. And then I got a call from the Oprah Winfrey Show one day, and they wanted me to go on and share my story. And I thought, this is crazy. Like, this is so out of control. How is this happening right now? And it truly taught me that if you really, really believe in something and it's what you're meant to be doing and it's your sole purpose and passion, and you walk in that space, magic can happen. Because people always ask me, how did you get on Oprah? Not once, or twice, but I didn't get on Oprah. Oprah found me because God was guiding me. I was listening. And then the space, people, when you're listening and energy begins to flow, things come together that might seem miraculous. And that's how my life has been, just asking God what to do, listening to Him, acting upon that, and things have just been happening that I would never have expected.
Amazing. Tell me about the name of your organization, Tiger Lily. Why did you choose that?
Well, Tiger Lily is named that because women are like tigers. We're so strong, and we're like lilies. We're very gentle and delicate. And I love the tiger lily flower, especially the stargazer lily, because the flower is a perennial and it blooms and grows in the spring and summer. It's beautiful. And then when the fall winter comes, the petals fall off. And when you're going through breast cancer treatment, women are like flowers. We're beautiful and strong and we're fragrant and powerful. But when we're going through breast cancer, because of the treatment, you tend to lose your hair, your breasts, maybe your ability to have children. So your rose petals fall off. But like the flower blossoms again in the spring and summer. So the petals fall off in the winter and fall, but they bloom again when it becomes warmer. So the woman tends to lose these things, but then throughout the process, whether it's a physical blooming and blossoming or even an emotional transformation, she finds her petals again and she blossoms and grows. And I wanted for what I built to become something that people saw as being transformational, as being a catalyst. When I first got diagnosed, there was too much of victimization, poor me, or, oh my God, you have cancer, I feel sorry for you, or you're a cancer patient. And, it was too much of that. too much fear, too much sadness. And I really believe that, cancer is horrible. However, no one's getting out of here alive. So for me, it was an opportunity to look at my life and assess, how do I change? How do I transform where I am? And so I wanted for other women, as I transformed through my breast cancer journey, I wanted others to have the opportunity to see cancer that as a catalyst, not as an end, but as a way to bloom and grow again, during and after breast cancer.
And you actually put all your journey together in a book called Fearless: Awakening My Life's Purpose Through Breast Cancer. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, so I mentioned a few minutes ago that I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was fantastic. But one of the things that they asked me, she asked when I was on there, she says, "Where's your book?" I was like, "Oh my God."
You're
Oh
like, my
God.
what?
My what? Because, first of all, being on the show was fantastic. It was a dream. But you know that anything Oprah touches or endorses or supports,
Yeah.
And so here I was sitting next to her, and she's asking me, "Where's my book?" And the staff had asked me, and there was no book. So, and she says, "Well, you better write one." And so she says, "Your story needs to be heard." And so I got back, and I had been keeping a journal throughout my whole breast cancer journey.
Wow.
And it was, it was so raw. It had everything in there from beginning of my treatment. Every step I did, I documented it. And so I took that journal and turned it into a book. And Fearless, it really was about learning to walk through my fears because, I had to walk through my fears since I was a child. The first war in Liberia was when I was 8 years old. The second war was when I was 12. The third war was when I was 15 years old. I've been held at gunpoint. I've had to lay on the floor for hours to avoid being seen or heard by soldiers. I've been in cars where my parents told us to put our heads down and don't say anything, and we've been hidden in, homes for weeks on end. So this is how I grew up. It's, learning to be comfortable with fear. But in a sense, I was always afraid. I always wanted to have safety. And, with breast cancer, instead of the war being outside of me where I could run from it, it was now inside of me. I couldn't escape it. And so I had to contend and get used to the fear within me and learn to become fearless, and not let the fear rule my life. I had to learn to look at it in the eye and say, okay, you're here, but I'm going to live and survive and thrive despite your presence in my life. And so the book really was about the journey of using fear as a catalyst, letting it push me and inspire me and propel me forward. And so it journeys the reader from my being in Liberia, laying in bed, listening to the rainstorms. I love the rain. Through all of my, the wars. I've been hit by lightning when I was 12, I think
You're
11 or
kidding.
12. No.
Wow.
And surviving that. And I literally had a near-death experience. So I knew
From the lightning hit?
the lightning hit. Yeah, the lightning. I know I'm mentioning this very casually, and it's not a casual thing, but
Yeah.
I've had so many things that have happened to me. I'm trying not to, there's so many. It could be like 3 books, but I knew I was meant to live. I didn't survive, the lightning and the wars and other things that happened that I won't go into, but I can share with you another time. Where I again being held at gunpoint and literally walking away. So the journey, the book is really about you choosing to always stand up to fear, stand up to it and moving past it. And whenever you do that, incredible things manifest because, when you're afraid of something, you think there's a door. You think that there are walls, but those walls and doors are only your preconceived notions. So what I've been doing my whole life is pushing doors down and pushing through bushes, walking into a path where there's no path, where my footsteps are making the path open up. And so I wanted to inspire people to live fearlessly, to not let their fears be their focus, but to let it be a catalyst. I wanted them to be inspired to be brave. I wanted women who had breast cancer to use that as a way to transform and grow. And I wanted to inspire others who are living their lives in a way um, that's not manifesting their greatest magic, to wake up and not wait till something happened that was terrible, transform them. And that was my first book. I'm working on book number 2 right now.
That's amazing.
Which is going to be all about bliss and joy.
I love
And,
it.
and embracing my happiness.
And Maimah, how do you do it all? Because, you're a mom, you're busy with your business, you're writing a book. Many days I wake up and I'm just like feeling so overwhelmed and I'm just waking up. How do you find balance and how do you try to get everything done and still take care of yourself, your family?
Well, it's all about intention. A lot of people I talk to say, I don't know how you do it. You have all these things going on, and I thrive with different projects. I can't just do one or two or three or four or five things. I thrive in, juggling multiple things, but I'm very intentional. So one thing I do is when I'm doing something, I'm totally focused. And my daughter gets mad at me because she'll be like, I'll be working and she'll say, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and she'll talk to me, and I will not. I'm like, I am so focused on what I'm doing right now. So I do one thing at a time, and then when I'm done with that one thing, I go to the next thing. So my intention is to put my intention on where I am and do that one thing. And so, and when I prioritize. And so my daughter is my top priority. So, I have time with her. And so in the morning, for example, I get up in the morning. The first thing I do is I pray. I thank God for my life and my breath, my heartbeat, for my child, and in her life and health and my family. And I express gratitude and I read. I read every morning. Um, and then I take my daughter to school. I go to the gym, and then my day starts. And I always plan the day before it starts. So before I go to bed at night, I plan the next day out. I plan out every single minute of what I'm going to be doing, including time to just stop and dance for 20 minutes or time to lay down for a short nap. So if you're intentional with your life and you have a plan, things do pop up that, sometimes I'll plan for a task to take an hour. It takes 2 or 3 hours. But I've learned to, in that instance, even, not try to push myself into cramming a lot of things into an hour or two. So so I'm a taskmaster. So I might say I'm going to get 10 things done today. When in reality, maybe I have to write a blog or two or three, whatever. That's going to take me, probably 6 hours, not 2 hours. So it's kind of being practical with myself and saying, here's what a task is going to take time wise. And also, and the other thing is, it's about mental agility and mental focus. So I train my mind in terms of being agile. I take time to rest. A lot of people in my life think it's interesting is I will shut down. I'll turn my phone off. I'll tell people I'm busy, and they'll say, "What are you doing?" And my answer will be nothing. Let's go
I
out.
need to do that.
Yeah, I'm doing nothing today. No, but you're free. No, I'm not free. I'm free for me, not for anybody else. For me, myself, or me and my daughter. So I intentionally carve out things like Maimah days or weekends where I just have no plans. And what I'll do is I'll just relax. I'll go for a walk. I'll sleep. But what it does is allow me time to just be and create and get rest and restore myself. So it's being intentional about living is so important. Just being intentional, um, giving yourself time to relax, taking care of your body. Exercise is so fundamental. I meditate. I do yoga, and I really make sure that I plan my day so that things don't become overcome by events. A lot of times people will email me and I don't respond for a couple of days, but I'm doing something, so I'll respond when I'm ready to respond. So people are trained how to treat you, whether it's in your personal life or in your business life, and so it's really important to prioritize your life in a way where it works for you to accomplish your highest goals. And that's kind of how I work. I just schedule it. I focused, and it's important to have time to play too. So when I work hard and I play hard, and it makes it all worthwhile.
I like your system. And like if you didn't have enough to do, you also now have a podcast. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I thought, I'm not busy enough running a charity that's, national. I have a consulting business. I'm coaching. I'm a single parent. I think I need more things to do. So I launched a podcast called Pure Bliss because I wanted people to, and it's on iTunes. I wanted people to share their stories of how they manifest their joy. We're living in a time where people feel hopeless, they feel powerless, they feel scared, and I I found incredible lessons through my cancer journey, like I said earlier, and I want people to kind of just show up and live their lives in a way that when they die, they can be proud that they pushed through barriers, they overcame their fears, and they manifested all they wanted to. So the Pure Bliss show is a way to highlight people like yourself who are just showing up and doing things, and in looking at the world and making it better, and people who are doing things that you might think are impossible. I love impossible goals. Those are what excite me in life. And so it highlights people who are doing incredible things. I had a friend who we're now friends. This guy, his name's Brian, and he was a mountain climber. He's climbed every mountain in the world. And
Wow.
he was on top of Everest, and his goggles dropped off and he became blinded. And had to come down Mount Everest blind. You know, I have a friend who was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, and he was stage 4 cancer. And he battled through that to end up running marathons. He now has a podcast that's been heard by over a million people. And he has a
Wow.
book, and he's a coach. You know, so I have another friend who launched a business at mid-20s, and she made millions of dollars before she was 30, you know, just out of an idea, simple idea. So people who are just manifesting things,
Man, you're busy, girl.
I'm on purpose. I like that. I love it. You know, when I get up in the morning, I get up thinking, okay, I got all this stuff to do. It's exciting. I am never, ever bored. You know, I'm never bored.
No, you don't have time to get bored.
No. And when I go to bed, I think, you know what? If I died tonight, there's nothing I didn't do that I'd set out to do. I mean, I've lived my whole day with intention. And of course, I
Yeah.
don't want to die for a long time, but I don't want to go to bed thinking that, you know what? I wish I had done this today. I wish I had planned that. I have my plans. I live them. I pour my entire self into my days, into my work, and I go to bed happy and content, and relatively tired.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Maimah. Now, as we prepare to wrap it up, how can people connect with you, share learn about your book, connect with you on social media?
My website is www.maimahkarmo.com, and I'll spell that out. It's a very unusual name. It's M as in Mary, AIMAHKARMO.com. And I have everything on there. My book's on there for purchase. I have links to my podcasts, and I'm also on Instagram as Maimah Karmo. I'm on Facebook at Maimah Karmo, and I'm on Twitter, which I love Twitter, at Maimah, Maimah. So please follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I also have a page on Facebook that I launched last year called Soul Purpose, Magic, and Bliss. And people post inspirational quotes on there all the time. So hope you guys come and find me, and look forward to manifesting bliss with all of you.
I love it. Yes. And for all you guys listening, we're going to have links to all the resources she mentioned and all her social media channels on the blog post for this episode. Well, Maimah, thank you so much for being with us. I really enjoy your story, and I'm sure people are feeling inspired and they want to know more about you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
I am very grateful for Maimah's time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As usual, you can email me at podcast@yasminthomas.com. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I have the same handle on all those platforms at Yasmin Thomas. YEZMINTHOMAS. So until next time, I invite you to please, if you have a minute of your time, leave me a review on iTunes. That helps the show get noticed. It helps to explain other people who are looking for useful content to understand what this podcast is about. So if you could take a minute of your day and go to iTunes and leave me a written review and a rating, I would really appreciate it. Till the next time, guys, remember, take it easy. I'll talk to you guys on the next take.